Hey everyone, my name is Taps, and on Friday we actually had a much anticipated Veve Ecomi AMA, and some felt it went really well, some felt like it was lackluster. We got some really good news and some further delayed news. The entire AMA was roughly around 2 hours long, so in this video I'm going to cover the key highlights and timelines that were discussed in a much shorter and concise window. As always, if you're new to the channel, welcome to the community, feel free to subscribe. I'm a crypto stock and real estate investor, but never a financial advisor. So my thoughts on it were there's some really good news that's actually coming in 2022, but there's also an unexpected bad news surprise. Well, let's get into it. Let's start off by kind of recapping on the highlights of the year, and they actually shared some news I did not know about the app, and that's that it actually was not open to the public until December. So we know that the first drop came in October, but the app didn't actually get released to public until December 21st, 2020. So really the app has only been available for a little over 12 months, which is absolutely crazy considering their success in such a short amount of time. Hundreds of brands signed and over 1.4 million active monthly users in a one-year-old app. That's incredibly difficult to accomplish, especially in a space like NFTs, which is not really massively adopted yet. But with Veve, it just makes sense, obviously. Dan also mentioned there was going to be quite a lot of app updates coming, like bug fixes for showroom, augmented reality features, and market features. Drop times will now be shown in your local time, which is great, as well as app feed redesign and new features coming. And he even mentioned a version 3 showroom that is in the works that will have a lot more additional features. This is good to hear because visually version 2 looks awesome, but the tools to easily move and create artistic showrooms with collectibles is still not user-friendly. So it's good to hear that they're actually thinking about improved versions throughout the year as we continue with our showroom. Other exciting news was they shared that we're actually going to start seeing a lot more interactive ability with our collectibles. Like we saw the DeLorean was drivable back in February of last year, and Dan even mentioned the DeLoreans specifically, and the prices of them started shooting up during the AMA. So while we will see interactive drops coming that could be dropped, we'll also potentially see current collectibles turned on, like what we've seen with the Ritmo and a few others where animation just automatically turned on. But we could also see certain collectibles that have obviously interactability between them. This is the jump from digital collectibles to digital toys, which this is where Veve is flipping the script, right? Like this is how they stay an added step ahead of those who are going into the digital collectible space and redefining the interactivity ability between digital collectibles that are now going to be digital toys. This is a great differentiator and another way for them to stay a step ahead in the NFT space. David also said that we will be seeing other verticals that we've been anticipating coming in 2022, and they've been actually having conversations with companies in sports and music, among many others. He even mentioned concerts, which we could see in the Veveverse, but I wonder if there's also going to be potential for further utility to real concerts for certain musicians. Kings of Leon made big NFT news earlier last year when they actually had some utility tied to their NFTs specifically for fans. And Swedish House Mafia actually made recent news just a few months ago about concert goers will be the first to experience Live Nation's NFT ticket stubs. And we've seen Veve do something like this with the No Time to Die James Bond NFT tickets, where those who were lucky enough to get these were able to then cash them in for movie tickets. Potentially they could do something like this with musicians as well, where if someone lands some of these rare drops, maybe they're able to go to a concert or maybe backstage passes. Like little things like this could be something that we could see in 2022. I can't remember if it was Dan or David, but one of them did say in 2022, we'll be bringing on other comic publishers. So we've seen what's happened with Marvel. We've been crushing with comics with Marvel, and the most obvious one is DC, which would of course be Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman, like all the DC characters. And actually in some DC comics, they outsell or hold larger value than Marvel. But we could also potentially see something like Image Comics, which has of course Spawn and The Walking Dead, or even something potentially like Dark Horse Comics, which is Sin City, Hellboy. Either way, it's exciting to hear that we're gonna get some variation with our comics. Dan mentioned more than once in this AMA that localization is a big focus. Focus for 2022, number 3 point, localization. Now, if you follow my channel, you know I've touched on this for months and months and months. I've probably done about 5 videos about localization being a key factor for user growth for Veve. And what's interesting is they haven't actually brought up localization in an AMA that we haven't really brought up before. So this is a good sign that it is a main priority and it is happening hopefully soon. For those of you who don't know, localization is the ability to basically change the language settings in the app so it is available in several different languages. Most apps are usually somewhere between 28 to 40 different languages. And the reason why this is so important is because we are mostly targeting English users. And when you think of digital collectibles, how much and how well they do in like the APAC region and several others, that's just a whole nother user base that we're just not targeting, with China, India being actually much larger users for apps than US. So localization opens up the Veve app to the world. It also makes the most sense for adding the anime vertical once that goes live, including potentially Pokemon. And since we've also heard other brands about comics, and I've asked this in an AMA directly to Dan before, potentially we could see digital manga in 2022 with localization as well. That piece made me stoked to hear that localization is a main priority for 2022 because it is going to have our user growth explode. The other big news is Reese actually did say that the immutable migration swap, so our OMI going from GoChain to Immutable X, will commence at the end of January, so just a few weeks away. And the reason why we're so excited for this is because it opens us up to being able to go on other exchanges, which most likely will happen sometime around then or maybe the beginning of February. They addressed, like they have several times, that they are on top of bots. Like they are spending tons and tons of money to make sure that they are taking care of as many bots as possible. But they also highlighted, you're not missing drops because there's just rampant bots. It's just numbers. They even said that each drop we block 25 to 30% of the incoming traffic and have disabled at least 250,000 accounts for this. That should tell you right there just how on top of it they are. But they also said there's a minimum of 150 to 200,000 people that go after each and every drop. Minimum. So that means there's more for even bigger drops like the Steamboat Willie and Golden Moments. So even if there's 30,000 additions for a comic drop, and let's say there's 150,000 people going for it, that's still a 1/5 chance. One thing they did say is if they actually show and prove that they're using unfair measures, that they catch these people doing bots, they do confiscate some of their collectibles, which will be retrieved and will be used for giveaways and not resold or burned. So that's really cool to hear because that means that there's a bunch of floaters out there that will be given away. We also got an update on the waiting room style drop system, which will be the new drop system coming versus what we have today. And that's that the infrastructure is all in place. They're just working on the UI and it will roll out soon enough, but they won't change the system 100% overnight, like right away. They'll instead have a mix of the old current system and then sprinkle in a few of these new waiting room style to see how it goes, to test it, to make sure it works well, and then flip over to that system. There was also an update on the Ron English Golden Rabbit airdrop where people received for holding the serial killer collectible set, but several said they actually did have it by the time of snapshot and did not receive it. So if you are one of those lucky people, then you will retroactively be receiving a golden Yucky Charmer, this guy right here, but in golden format. Do not, I repeat, do not go complete the set now in hopes that you're going to be receiving this guy because the snapshot was taken a few weeks ago. Now on to MTL. This is the surprise bad news that didn't expect. I'm addressing this because I do think it has been poorly communicated from Ecomi and Veve. They said over a month ago that it was rolled out to a beta group and would be rolling out in groups shortly after. But in this AMA, they said it is still with that group and didn't really give an update at all in terms of timeframes or expectations. They then added another piece of news that no one really, I guess, expected or heard yet, and that's that some countries will actually not be able to use MTL. And so that kind of surprised a lot of people. Now, if you're in the US, if you're in the UK, you're going to be fine, but they don't have that list complete. And I think that's something that should have been shared off the get-go or been clarified back at least around when they first announced it, because they've been talking about MTL since March of last year. So you have all these users who are supporting you, but what happens if they're in one of these countries that have been affected? So I think this just set some really odd expectations, but it seems like a big disservice to some of the users who could be affected by this, who've been looking forward to this and and waiting to pull their money out of the app since March. So a lot of people always say, oh, you only talk about the good things, but not the bad things. Well, I will say this is a bad thing. The further delays on MTL to this point for this long, for so many, is extremely frustrating. But there's two things to consider with this. From Veve's perspective, setting up MTL for all of the countries, states, different currencies would normally take about 2 years in order to actually make all of this happen, but they're making it happen in under 1 year. So that's impressive, but there's the other side to it, right? And that's from the user's point of view, because there's a lot of money that people have invested into this app. And when you tell your user base that they're gonna be able to cash out soon, and then 8 months later, they still don't have it, people will get frustrated, which is justifiable. Now, I'm cool. Like, I have no problem letting my money just sit there and keep stacking up money in the app. But if I went through some kind of unforeseen financial issue, I'd want to be able to cash out. And that's where I think there's getting to be some frustrations, because maybe people didn't budget right, or because they just want their money out, right? Like, they didn't expect to be in this for 8 months. So I see both sides, where we want it to take its time in order to be done right. And it's a big, big ask and lift for them to make this happen so fast. But they really shouldn't have put such a early timeline. So this does need to start rolling out, and for it to still not be ready with the new year and just now announcing the countries thing, it's disappointing. They did confirm though that when it comes to cashing out from gems to fiat, it will require AML, KYC, know your customer, basically verification of your identity in order to do so. That said, the next update was the web version is in the final throes. They didn't give a hard date, but it sounds like it's also tearing up, hopefully for this quarter. But the news that everyone freaked out about, I was on Daniel Lee's stream and people were losing it. And that is that David Yu said that Veve has weekly calls with Apple and stay up to date with the team on future tech. Now, this is not a confirmation of any kind of a partnership with Apple and Veve, but they are a high user-based augmented reality app, a Metaverse NFT play, and one of the highest grossing entertainment apps. So we don't know the context of these conversations. Like, he didn't really go enough into it. I requested to speak and I was invited because my question was going to be, can you go a little bit more into detail about what you mean when you say you're on weekly calls with Apple? Is it tied to just the app, or is it some kind of look towards the future of where the app could go? Like, something around there. But it's safe to say that Apple and larger companies are very aware of Veve. They know what they're building. They know what they're doing. So their reach and connections could be much larger than anything we could imagine right now. Consider that. Another really cool piece that they said was one of ones will for certain be coming, and it sounds like it'll be something around certain artists. But this is incredible. When you look at one of one works in OpenSea from key artists, they sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And when you look at the lowest edition sized collectibles on Veve, whether it's a comic or collectible from season 1 or a collectible from season 3 that has a super low edition size, it usually goes up really high in value no matter what. So a one of one, you are the only one who holds this piece, yeah, those will do well. We also got an announcement from Jermaine Rogers, who hopped on the AMA, who unveiled that the Bale specimen are actually going to be the next drop that we will see from him, and that they're directly related to the Darrow, which I watched, like, right when he said that, I pulled up the Darrow. It was at $888, and I watched it shoot up to like over 1.6. Like, it doubled in value in maybe 5 minutes. So this will be the next drop that we will see from Jermaine Rogers. Another update they did give was that occlusion is done. So the ability to basically like place your Batman around the corner, be able to film, and then you come around the corner and there's your Batman. So being able to basically like place the AR feature behind objects versus only having it stuck on the screen no matter where you go. And the front camera feature is coming soon as well. So again, being able to actually film front camera versus having to go inverted and get creative with screen recording, this is going to help tremendously. Also, kind of another disappointing update that we got was around Labit breeding. So as we've seen, Frank Kozik did do this post on December 16th, that Labit breeding will happen sometime in late 2022. And Alex G actually made a point to really convey that some of the artists can speak out about something coming before really knowing if it's possible and that it's not confirmed. So essentially, Labit breeding may not happen just because Kozik said it will be. Labits have shot up in price, so this could have an effect. Jeremy Padower, Uncle Jeremy, actually hopped in AMA as well and threw out about how excited he is for Veve in 2022 and potentially doing something with physical toys to match maybe some of our digital. This would be amazing, and we all know what we were hopeful for, but he has many different types of toy brands that he is a big fan of, and I would love to see some kind of partnership with him and Veve in a official form. Now, they concluded the AMA with David Yu saying that they actually have some massive brands still coming over the next few weeks or next few months. Why is this important? Because consider the rampage of gains that we've seen in our collectibles during this time where there haven't been much brands announced since December. And what happens when a big brand is announced? Profits are taken and the prices of our collectibles go down. And that's also they actually have enough gems for a big brand launch. So if we know one's coming in the next couple weeks, something to consider beforehand. And when I think of big brands that we could see, we know that they always tackle the top licensors, and this is actually an older list from 2020, but he did mention sports. So we can see NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, NFLPA, which we know that they have already announced, Polo, National Hockey League, NASCAR, WWE, PGA. Like, there are so many different licensors in the top 100 that we have yet to see that really could do really well in Veve. And when you zoom out to the value of the companies, you would think that Disney would be our most valuable brand, and it's actually not. Disney is massive, especially for collectibles, but it's at $55 billion, and actually Coca-Cola is a more valuable brand by far than Disney. But when you think about how many large brands and how many large companies are out there, I mean, looking at retail and luxury, food and beverages, I would love to see McDonald's, Starbucks. There are so many big brands out there that we could see coming in 2022. Overall, 2020 looks bright, and I think this AMA highlighted some big things that are coming, but I do hope that we get more upfront answers on timeline delays instead of just kicking the can down the road like what we've seen. In the bigger picture of things, we're all making a ton of money in Veve. Prices have been skyrocketing. Our community just keeps growing and getting stronger, and we've yet to see really what this year has in store for us. So it's really easy to focus on all the things that haven't happened yet because they've been spoken about for so long. But don't forget what has already happened, where we are at now. I mean, 8 months ago, you could have grabbed a ton of Todd Batmans for, what, $200? And today, they're over $6,000 each. Put that in perspective, just how much money we're making easily in Veve by holding and collecting and having fun in the app. We've come a long way in a short amount of time. And this year is just beginning. As always, I hope you found my content valuable. If so, please hit the like button, leave a comment down below. The likes and comments appease the algo overlords and help my channel continue to grow. If you haven't yet, please hit the subscribe button and notification bell for future content. That's it for today. I'm Taps. Thank you for your time, man. Happy trading.